people, experts, scholars, academicians who are closely working in the formation of the committee and the implementation of this committee. So the first in this series, we have Professor Pankaj Arora with us from Faculty of Education. Now I request Professor Pankaj Tyagi, Program Coordinator of MME, to welcome Professor Arora. So over to Pankaj.
Okay. Now it is my privilege, and I really thank Jyoti and all other MME students for organizing this web series on the new education policy. I welcome officially Professor Pankaj Arora for the discussion on decoding this new education policy. I once again thank everybody from the CIC for organizing this. So over to Professor Pankaj Arora.
Now, Professor Arora, before we starting the session, the entire series will be moderated and coordinated by the students here. So for the today's session, we have moderators as Sushant and Sharad. Both Sushant and Sharad are students of MSc Math Education Semester 3. Uh, Both have background in mathematics and expert. They are bubbling experts in ICT and education. For the reporter and facilitators, we have Pallavi and Ranveer with us. Am I right? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So both Pallavi and Ranveer, again students of semester 3. Pallavi is an aspirant scholar in education, aiming to do her PhD in education, and Ranveer is looking into entrepreneurships and other education fields to facilitate further in this area. All these four students will be moderating and coordinating the entire session. So, where Sushant,
Yes, ma'am.
could you please formally introduce Professor Arora to the audience?
Okay, ma'am. I will do that.
Yes, Sharad, please.
A very good afternoon to everybody. My name is Sharad Chaudhary. Today's event is a beginning of webinar series on decoding new education policy 2020 discussions on future roadmaps. This event is organized by the faculties and the students of the college cluster innovation center and course MSc Mathematics Education, University of Delhi. This is an introductory session. Topic to be covered in this session is an introduction to national education policy, vision, and challenges. We have with us our esteemed guest and speaker, Professor Pankaj Arora sir, and our convener, Professor Jyoti ma'am, guide Professor Alka ma'am, faculties and students of Cluster Innovation Center. Before we move further, let me give you a brief introduction of our guest, Professor Pankaj Arora sir. Sir is currently working as a professor in Central Institute of Education, that is CIE, University of Delhi. And sir has done his PhD from the same institute, CIE. His research interest and specializations are pedagogy of political science, social science education, adolescence education, education, youth, and democracy. Sir has published 4 books and one edited book is under publication with ICSSR New Delhi. Sir has contributed more than 12 articles in indexed reviewed journals and has given more than 36 conference presentations. Sir has done tremendous public service, university service, and consulting activity in his ongoing career. If I begin telling about his service to the education in detail, it will alone take more than an hour. So you might be getting an idea how esteemed our guest is. But as we are bounded by the time constraint, I will move to the next part of the event. Let me tell you the structure of the event. Event is of 2 hours, and last half an hour of the event is for doubts and questions regarding this session. Over to you, Professor Pankaj Arora, sir. Thank you.
May I intervene for a minute? We have restructured the program, so there is some confusion. Initially, Professor Arora, we may request you to formally talk about the policy for 30-40 minutes, so that give an overview and layout of the policy, and then students have prepared some questions because students have briefly read the policy, but their understanding of policy requires expertise. So they have prepared questions for you. So probably we'll take up the questions immediately after you finish your introductory remarks on the policy. Thank you so much. Professor Arora, please. Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry. This is the common error which most people are doing these days. A warm, very good afternoon to each one of you, student coordinators Sharad, Sushant, and reporters for the event, Ms. Pallavi and Mr. Ranveer. It's a privilege to come and speak at CIC, Cluster Innovation Center. Dr. Jyoti Sharma is an old friend and alumnus of CIE. We were almost age mates, if not batch mates, 1 or 2 years ahead of each other. Thank you, Professor Pankaj Tyagi, for this opportunity to speak at CIC. I am from CIE and this is CIC. So you can see the shift. CIC is a conventional institution of education, which is there since 1948. CIC, its nomenclature is suggesting cluster innovation. So it's a center of innovations. And this group of students, which is from MSc Mathematics Education, is an innovative program of University of Delhi. So I'll be talking from a little conventional background, analyzing the policy, highlighting the features of the policy, and we'll try to decode, as you people have given me a mandate, what roadmap is there and what are the challenges there before the policy. I think this is, first I would like to compliment CIC and this team of MSc Mathematics Education of initiating a web series on national policy on education. Because to my understanding and knowledge, this is the first initiative in entire University of Delhi, which has been taken up to discuss, to decode, to understand, to question about national policy of education. So compliments to you for this wonderful beginning in the university. Just with the opening of new academic year, you have taken it up, and I'm glad to know you have planned 8 webinars, a series of webinars where I am supposed to give an overview of the policy, and then you would have a specialized discussions with different experts in the series. We people are people of education, and first we need to understand what do policy means. Few of us must be knowing what does policy mean and why it become very, very significant and important to discuss. Friends, whenever we hear the term policy, we got alarmed. What policy is being discussed? What policy is being planned? What government is doing? Has government taken inputs from the stakeholders, from masses, from activists in the field, from opposition? Because policy is something which allow you to think, to review, and to restructure the given theme up to 360 degree. You people are people of mathematics. You may catch me if I'm wrong. 360 degree means all around. 180 is from this angle to this angle, and 360 is even all around. The way when we drive a vehicle, we are supposed to look. We should not be looking at the back end. So whenever we talk of a policy give us an opportunity to review and restructure the given theme up to 360 degree. Means nothing is there which can remain untouched, provided policymaker wants to touch it. So this is very important. And as I suggested, the minute you say we are going to discuss, we are going to bring a new policy, the people who are in the government, who are in opposition, aware citizens, activists, NGOs, all get alarmed. And this is an indication that people are aware and they are progressive. They do react and respond to the situation. Now, if we talk of education policy, I would like to share a brief history of major reforms in education. At what stage of Indian development and progress, at what stages we thought of a new policy. We all know that education policy is related with, because education is a major discipline which impact society, thinking, youth, culture, language, and whatnot, because education and health are two integral components which are very, very important for any society, any group of people. So if I take you back to, if I want to relate this policy or the major shift in education with the major shift in society, industrially, socially, culturally, economically, I'll take you back to whenever we bring a policy. This is also important that when we discuss a policy, we should not try to read it. We should not only try to read what is written there, but we should also try to read what is not written there. And that means we must try to read between the lines, something which is existing there but is not in black and white. So those catches are more critical than the black and white text in a policy document. Let us go back to first industrial revolution. I relate evolution of education with industrial revolutions. This may be my way of associating growth of education in the country, because first industrial revolution bring a major shift in human life. Machines were brought in and printing press was brought in. And along with this, Macaulayan model of education came in. The same period, 1750 is the period of industrial revolution, and 1833 is the period when Macaulay brought its minutes, which introduces English education in India. So this was the first step. Then we can see around 1870 when we see second industrial revolution, which introduces electricity, gas, and diesel engine to economy and society. And along with this, we could see another major shift in education, another major document in education, that was Wood Dispatch in 1854. So another major change along with second industrial revolution. Third industrial revolution, which is supposed to be happening in around 1969, when computers were invented, nuclear energy was tried to be tamed for peaceful and productive use. Electronic communication was introduced. And at the same time, we could see Kothari Commission recommendations in 1966. So this, again, Kothari Commission was first major commission of independent India, which was given a mandate to overhaul Indian education system. Prior to this, we had Radhakrishnan Commission, Mudaliar Commission, which were talking of a specific domain to be looked into, either university education or secondary education. But Kothari Commission was given a mandate to overhaul entire Indian education system, and this coincides with third industrial revolution, 1966. And just after this, we could see first education policy of independent India in 1968. Now, with this last, after 68, we had seen another important policy on education, 1986, which was considered as a policy of a science-based education promotion was there. Then we saw Kalam Sahab's vision for education and vision for the nation, which also helped us define national priorities and national vision. And now we are talking of in 2020, we just have received on 29th July, third education policy of independent India. 68 was first, 86 was second, and 2020 is third. Now this third policy can easily be related with fourth industrial revolution. Fourth industrial revolution, when we can see a global and universal society, we can see an era of robotic science and artificial intelligence. So to meet these upcoming challenges in education, to meet these upcoming changes in social and educational lifestyle, we have brought in another education policy 2020. This industrial revolution, I labeled it as not only industrial revolution, but generation revolution. Because the whole generation change we can shift is there. Now, robotic, machines, electronics, gadgets are becoming center of human life. So this new document do need to be looked into carefully and understood very methodically. I cannot discuss all the 24 chapters of this education policy. So my focus would be on three major domains. One is school education, because you and me belong to the courses and the programs which will help us understanding school education. You and me are part and parcel of higher education system. You are doing a degree there, and I am partner in as a faculty member in higher education. And third is teacher education, which CIA is known for, teacher education programs. So my whole discussion would be around these three broad themes. Friends, each policy has certain guiding principles. Now, what are guiding principles for this education policy? Number one, this policy wants to get rid of Macaulayan era. English education के जो फीचर्स थे, जो आज तक हम मानते हैं कि कहीं ना कहीं मेंटल स्लेवरी का रीजन बने हुए हैं, those need to be get rid of. So first is to get rid of Macaulayan education and do celebrate and approve and promote Indian knowledge. So this policy intend to help us understand we should not be the followers of Western knowledge, but we should be celebrating and promoting Indian knowledge also, Indian Gyan, Indian whatever wisdom is there, that need to be probed and looked into a scientific and modern context. This is number one. Number two, along with this, Indian languages need to be promoted. So this policy brings a major shift in language policy. Lot of multi-language culture is coming up. Multilingual classrooms are existing. Now we are promoting Indian education in primary education as well as in higher education. And then this policy do prepare us, do present certain important aspects of teacher education. It's bringing a major shift in teacher education programs in the country. Now, what are the changes this policy is suggesting in school education first? Number one, we must have studied policy, we must have gone through the policy document and saw there is a major shift in structure of school education system. Earlier we had a structure of 10+2 model. Now we are going to have a new model which is 5+3+3+4. This structural change is a major change, a landmark change. Now this policy say that over first 5 years of education, 5+3+3+4. First 5 years is a foundational education. You can remember foundation education is a concept of Mahatma Gandhi also when he talks of Bunyadi Shiksha. So Bunyadi Shiksha foundation. Foundation should be strong. Foundation should be proper that children can build upon their life and their academic venture. Then there is the preparatory model, 3 years education, which is for 3 years and will be helping young children to develop a class which would be class 3, 4, and 5. Now, this foundation education is focusing on, if you have heard Professor Kasturi Rangan's national conclave on education on around 10 days back, he very beautifully explained these 4 stages of school education. He suggested this first is foundation period is a period to development of perceptions among young children. If many of us in this group, I am sure, are aware of learning theories, learning psychology. And learning theories suggest us that this is the age, 3 years to 8 years is the age when a child develops different perceptions about people, about objects around him or her. This is good, this is not good. This is a man, this is a woman. This is a tiger, this is a cat. So different perception about the people and the objects around a young child. So this first foundation education is meant to develop perceptions. Then next 3 years, which is class 3, 4, 5, age 8, 9, 10, 11, is an era of conceptual learning. This is the time when young children, Piaget and Vygotsky both supported that this is the time when young children develop certain concepts. They develop certain concepts for themselves, as well as they start relating those concepts to a little wider world around them, to their families, to their schools, and the society in general. So this is a period of conceptual understanding and conceptual learning. Then next 3 years is an era of middle classes, class 6, 7, 8, age 11, 12, 13, 14. Perspective building. They start developing their own perspective. I like this, I don't like this. This is good, this is not good. This teacher, this system, this subject, this knowledge, these people, he or she start developing perspective about institutions, etc. And last 4 years of school age, which is class 9, 10, 11, 12. This is an era of abstractive learning. Now, from perception to abstraction. Perception at early childhood, which is foundation years, and now abstraction towards the senior secondary school level. So this is a one major shift, which is, I think, is a welcoming step, because this is designed to meet the needs of young children, that early childhood foundation education would be in mother tongue and perception building. At the same time, this policy suggests that evaluation would also be seeing a major change, major shift. Instead of our education preparing rote memory-based people, rote memory-based technicians or engineers or academicians, this policy focuses on concept understanding. So instead of assessment and evaluation of your knowledge, this policy suggests that assessment and evaluation should be of concepts, conceptual understanding of the young children. This policy also covers an age group which has unfortunately been left out at the time of introducing right to education in 2009. Right to education speaks of children between 6 to 14 years of age. This policy speaks of children from 3 years to 18 years, so 15 years of formal schooling. We have a major grievance against right to education, and that was, where has children between 0 to 6 years have gone? Why state is not willing to take up the responsibility of those children? So this policy has looked into the aspect of early childhood care, numeracy, literacy, etc., and taken into account children from 3 years instead of 6 years. So 3 years expansion in school education is another important aspect of this policy. Through this, we can now easily bring those children into formal school system. Anganwadi will get a better reputation and acknowledgement in the formal education system, and children below 6 years can easily be associated with midday meal type schemes, which are there to nurture and to take care of their nutritional needs. So these are things which are there, which are important for school education. Now, assessment, as I mentioned, is not based on rote memory or knowledge component only. This is of competencies, assessment of competencies, assessment of personality. This policy suggests when we say assessment of competencies and personality, we also means that instead of assessment of IQ based knowledge, intelligence quotient based knowledge, now we are shifting to EQ based personality, emotional quotient based personality. When I say competencies, am I competent to deal with this situation? Am I competent to resolve this problem? Am I competent to handle a given situation? So these competencies would be tested, which will surely help us to have more emotionally stable young children instead of weaker emotional people. Weaker emotional means the people when they are habitual and they are looking forward to having success all the time. A failure they find it very very difficult to deal with. When we encourage and promote their competencies, then I'm sure the competencies will help them to deal with different situations, and those young children would be more productive and useful for society in general. So this is another change in evaluation at secondary at the now instead of report cards, policy is talking of progress card. So it's not reporting your IQ or reporting your cognitive development, but it should be looking at your progress in totality. So it's more holistic method of evaluation. This policy is talking of multidisciplinarity at school level as well as at higher education level. Multidiscipline institutions. This stream system that I am a science graduate, I am a commerce graduate, I'm a management graduate, I'm a humanities student, I'm a social science student, I am a product of vocational education. We can easily see a hierarchy in this discipline. That hierarchy is neither given by you nor given by me, but gradually over a period of time this hierarchy got established. So medical students, engineering students, science students are at the top of it. Management students and economic students are after this. Social sciences, humanities, and at the end of this hierarchy of disciplines, we see vocational education, which is actually giving us livelihood and which is actually training and empowering poor people in the country who cannot continue higher education or who cannot continue, they drop out at a given stage. So this policy is talking to provide them vocational education from class 6th onward. So like class 6th onward, young children's aptitude would be developed towards so-called blue-collar jobs. So I see this as a step, as an initiative to recognize dignity of labor, to give importance to dignity of labor. All children from class 6 would be learning and practicing one or other important vocation. So whether I want to be a doctor or engineer, at class 6, 7, 8, I have to do something with hand. That again, the Gandhian model, basic education. It's not about writing and arithmetic, but instead of 3R, Gandhi talks of 3H. hand, heart, and head. So working with hand is getting importance in this policy. So this is few things which I have mentioned about school education. Now let's talk of higher education. Now this higher education model is also getting a major revamping. Instead of 3 years bachelor's degree, policy is suggesting 4 years bachelor's degree. But what new is there? 4 year bachelor degree was brought to University of Delhi in 2011 also, which was withdrawn in 2015. So what new is there in this policy? Number one, this policy is saying even if you cannot complete your graduation, I tell you a statistics from University of Delhi itself. 30% admissions in first year, 70% exit after third year. So 30% students get dropout in between their 3 years of graduation. This is an interesting statistics of University of Delhi itself. Now, where those 30% have gone? Why their effort and their contribution and whatever they did in first year or second year have not been acknowledged or credited. Now, this policy speaks that every student's contribution and any period he or she is spending in a higher education institution would be credited. So each student will be having a digital locker to accumulate credits. So if I have completed a few papers of 20 credit, so 20 credit would be added to my DigiLocker. And because of some personal reasons, family reasons, social reasons, getting married, economic conditions in my family, I drop out after first year. Those 20 credits will remain there as my credits and will entitle me to get a certificate from university. So this would equate it with a certificate course. 2 years education in a university system, in a higher education institution, would be equated with a diploma. So student, whatever investment he or she is doing financially and intellectually is not going wasted, is not drop out. They people opted because of certain reasons to exit for the time being, but they can come in multiple exit and multiple entries are allowed in this new system. So it's not that after first year you're exiting. After 2 years, you can come back for completion of your graduation, and those first year credits are still there in your DigiLocker. You can add upon. After completing certain credits, suppose 80 credits, if I presume that 1 year is for 20 credits. So after 4 years, after completion of my first year, I exit with a certificate. But after 2 years, after doing some employment, after getting married and getting to a new family situation, now my circumstances are favoring me to get back to education. And so I'll not start from a scratch. I'll start with 20 credits in my pocket and can add on to diploma, to a general degree after 3 years, and to a specialized honors degree after 4 years. So this multiple entry exit program is also going to help us accumulating, collecting our credits as per our comfort, as per our situation and circumstances, and we can exit with a certificate or a diploma or a general degree or a specialized degree at the end of 4 years. This is one thing. Number two, this model is promoting multidisciplinarity, which I did mention at school education also. Now I'll elaborate it. This new policy suggests that children should have right to decide what they want to study. My interest is in political science. I am a student of political science, but I did have interest in literature also. I did have interest not in general, but in mathematics. So it's with music, with history, with political science, with English literature, with chemistry, any combination I want, suiting to my personality and my taste and my aptitude, I can surely go for that. How I summarize this? I say now student has right. स्टूडेंट को अपना गुलदस्ता सजाना है कि वो ग्रेजुएशन का उसका गुलदस्ता कैसे सजेगा, तो इसके लिए जो फूल हैं वो अपनी मर्जी से चुन सकता है. ये रिजिड स्ट्रक्चर के अंदर उसको नहीं मिलेगा कि आफ्टर पीसीएम यू कैन बी अ ग्रेजुएट ऑफ साइंस एंड आफ्टर पॉलिटिकल साइंस हिस्ट्री यू कैन बी अ ग्रेजुएट ऑफ बीए ऑनर्स. नो, you can opt and choose any discipline. So this will help breaking the stream system in education at school level as well as university level. Now this stream system also help in breaking, as I mentioned, in breaking hierarchy of disciplines. And this multidisciplinary culture in an educational institution will surely help me to grow as a more informed and more positive personality about various disciplines in my institution. IIT only for sciences, JNU only for social sciences, Institute of Mathematics only for mathematics, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose in Technology University only for technology. Why can't we have multidisciplinarity in the institutions? We can easily see University of Delhi, which is a university of multidisciplines. BHU, Aligarh Muslim University, Patna University. All these universities are universities of multidiscipline. Though those structures were not allowing them to have interdisciplinary options to the students and stuff like that. But people coming out of these universities, we can see, have a respect for the dignity of all disciplines around them, instead of going with a specialization, with a superiority that I am a maths graduate from this university, I am a technology graduate from this IIT. No, you can see people around you who are from social science, who are from languages, who are from humanities. And so this multidisciplinarity is also going to make a major shift. Besides this, we can see another big challenge in university higher education, and that is the issue of autonomy. This policy is talking of autonomy. Now this autonomy is multi-layered, can be questioned. There are very many apprehensions about this autonomy. This autonomy means government will withdraw its support and control over higher education institutions. Does this autonomy means universities would be into self-financing mode and they can develop their own curriculum? Now, I want to ask you a basic question, and that is, at this age of around 22, 23, 24, MS age period is generally like 22, 23, 24. Do you people want other people to decide for you, or you want to take decision for yourself? As an academician, I want to introduce a new program, a new specialized course in my university: adolescence education, democratic education, youth education, and empowerment. My system says you have to go to staff council, you have to go to faculty meeting, you have to get it through standing committee, then you have to go to academic council, and then you have to go to executive council. So many channels. I am an expert in democratic education, but a person of mathematics, because he or she is a part of academic council, is pointing out, no, Professor Agoda, I think this point should be removed. With what authority you are suggesting me this point should be removed? This is a new specialization. Youth and democracy is a new specialization, and hardly India have around 10 experts in this field. How can anybody and everybody give me suggestions over it? In many universities across the world, in West and Europe, there are programs which are offered by individuals. Individual faculty member can develop a program, a course, and float it. If you're interested, you can join it online or offline, earn credit, and this credit would be acknowledged by university system to your credit, which would be added to your DigiLocker, and after 80 credits, you will be awarded a degree. So here you get an opportunity to explore new and innovative programs which are coming up as the need of the situation. Last year, Dr. Jyoti Sharma and Pankaj ji are witness. I got this opportunity to curriculum revision of University of Delhi. I was given this responsibility by university as convener, university convener, to review all undergraduate curriculum of University of Delhi. You would be surprised and shocked to know there were many courses which have not been looked into for more than 30 years. The course which my father have studied, I am studying same course after 30 years. What is the point? 30 साल में मेरे डिसिप्लिन में कुछ चेंजेस नहीं आए, सोसाइटी में चेंजेस नहीं आए, जॉब मार्केट में चेंजेस नहीं आए, नीड्स में चेंजेस नहीं आए. इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन तो मैंने अभी कहा कि 3rd से 4th आ गया, लेकिन कोर्सेज वही चल रहे हैं. तो ये जो कोर्सेज चेंज का जो मामला है, व्हाई कांट वी गिव ऑटोनॉमी टू डिपार्टमेंट्स और टू कॉलेजेस टू कीप अपडेटिंग देयर ओन कोर्सेज. आई नो वन वंडरफुल इंस्टीट्यूशन which do this exercise every year. Every summer vacation, they take up this activity. Their faculty on their own take up this activity of looking into their curriculum, revise it, upgrade it, update reading list, and float it for next academic year. Nobody stops us. This autonomy issue, so this autonomy is not autonomy to the students, not only to the teachers, but to the institutions. And how this is, I personally believe that I am a person who look at positive aspect of things first and then negative aspect. So this policy has just come in, so I am just looking at the positive aspects of it. This autonomy thing is suggesting each institution has to prove its credibility itself. You can recall, University of Delhi was established in the year 1922 with 3 colleges. Ramjas College, Hindu College, St. Stephen's College. ये तीनों colleges क्या थे? They were autonomous colleges working under trust. अलग-अलग trust के autonomous colleges थे. इनको मिला के University of Delhi बनी. अब University of Delhi ने जब start किया, all universities for that purpose, be it Central University or State University, all universities are autonomous on multiple ways, in multiple ways, in deciding their curriculum. We doesn't fall under, we means like university people, we doesn't fall under the direct domain of central government or state government. If they want to bring something, they have to bring it through UGC, and after coming to UGC, it's university's own executive council to decide whether they want to follow it, whether they want to moderate it, whether they want to reject it. And this is an autonomy to the institution. So universities are already autonomous in multiple ways, in deciding their curriculum, in deciding their autonomy, in making their appointments, etc. So this autonomy system will surely help those colleges who are running as private shops. They got affiliated to certain universities, and then they believe that just managing to acquire their, to maintain their affiliation, managing those 800 colleges, their curriculum, their examination, declaration of results on time, etc. Now those colleges doesn't bother about their own academic standards, their own academic curriculum, their own academic faculty members, their own academic resources, laboratories, etc. Because they know student is not coming to them for them, they are coming to them for the degree of the concerned university. And they want this route to, through this affiliated college, to acquire that degree. So degree is important. College teaching arrangements, laboratory, etc. is secondary for them. And this situation is being exploited by such affiliated colleges. I strongly believe that these affiliated colleges are an adda of corruption. License Raj की तरह, जैसे license Raj system is a big black spot on the working of any administration. ये बिल्कुल उसी तरह से काम करते हैं, और लाइसेंस राज की तरह इनका सारा कंसर्न लाइसेंस लेने में, एफिलिएशन मेंटेन रखने में है. तो आपको जैसे मैंने एग्जांपल दिए, मेरठ यूनिवर्सिटी, रोहतक यूनिवर्सिटी, आईपी यूनिवर्सिटी, लकीली दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में एफिलिएटेड कॉलेजेस नहीं हैं. दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट कॉलेजेस हैं, वो आप अलग से डॉक्टर ज्योति शर्मा से या प्रोफेसर पंकज त्यागी जी से समझ लीजिएगा क्या फर्क होता है दोनों। तो ये जो स्ट्रक्चरल चेंज है, अब क्या होगा, आप लोगों को बड़े अच्छे से पता है कि बहुत सारी प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटीज इवन एनसीआर में है। मैं एनसीआर की बात कर रहा हूँ बिकॉज वी आर लोकेटेड इन दिल्ली। एनसीआर में 50 प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं। आर दे ऑल इक्वली गुड? आर दे ऑल इक्वली गेटिंग गुड क्वालिटी स्टूडेंट्स? Are they attracting youth to get admission to them? No. Many we hardly know Jindal, Ashoka, Shiv Nadar, MET, this, and that's it. उसके बाद की यूनिवर्सिटी में पता भी नहीं है क्या कर रही है। क्यों नहीं पता? Because they have not been able to prove themselves in society. उनकी डिग्री का वैल्यू नहीं है। वैल्यू नहीं है तो स्टूडेंट्स नहीं आता। तो उन्हें ये स्ट्रगल खुद ही निभानी है, क्योंकि वो एफिलिएटेड यूनिवर्सिटीज नहीं है, वो डिग्री देने वाली यूनिवर्सिटीज है। तो ये चैलेंज उनके सामने बना रहता है कि दे हैव टू प्रूव देमसेल्फ। सो दे कीप इंप्रूविंग देयर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, फैकल्टी, करिकुलम एंड स्टफ लाइक दैट। So this challenge will now get shifted to affiliated colleges when they will become autonomous. They have to prove their credentials to attract youth from the society. That is another important aspect. In higher education, this multilingual system is also there, but I think I have taken more time than suggested, 40 minutes. Now I'll shift to my last point, which is teacher education. My own discipline, my own specialization. This teacher education program, you have rights to be agree or disagree with me. In school education, there is I missed one point, that is cluster model, cluster school system, which is bringing Kothari Commission's idea of neighborhood school. So those neighborhood school concept is now can see light of the day. You can, when you will be discussing it with some other expert, just try to understand what is this cluster model of schooling and how this is close to neighborhood school model of Kothari Commission. This you can discuss some other time. I will be coming to teacher education. ME is a product of teacher education programs in the country in University of Delhi. Dr. Jyoti Sharma is a product of teacher education program in University of Delhi. So teacher education program has always been striving to a major change. Long back, it was teacher training. In 1966, after Kothari Commission, it became teacher education, 1-year program, BH. Gradually, lot of new programs keep coming, diploma program, DLH, bachelor degree program, BLH, BA education, B.Ed special education, B.Ed general, B.Ed primary education, B.Ed secondary education. So multi-layered programs are there for 1 year. In 2014, we saw another change. NCT, which was established in the year 1993 as a regulatory body for teacher education programs, came out with certain major changes, gadgets in teacher education, and brought 17 programs of teacher education. 17 programs of teacher education. आप सब अपनी मेमोरी पूरी लगाओ और याद करो कि आपको 17 तरह के टीचर्स मिले हैं कभी? 17 तरह के टीचर्स स्कूल सिस्टम में चाहिए। स्कूल में चाहिए प्राइमरी टीचर, प्री प्राइमरी टीचर, सेकेंडरी टीचर, सीनियर सेकेंडरी टीचर। अब इसमें मल्टी लेयर प्रोग्राम्स में क्या नुकसान हुआ? एक डोमेन अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट से भरा हुआ है। बीएड 10 लाख लोग प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं, 10,000 इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, वहाँ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है। प्राइमरी टीचिंग, वो प्राइमरी टीचिंग में जा नहीं सकते क्योंकि वो एनसीटी ने लेबल कर दिया कि ये सेकेंडरी एजुकेशन के लिए है। प्राइमरी टीचिंग में टीचर्स की स्कार्सिटी है, शॉर्टेज है, क्योंकि डीएड बड़ा छोटा सा नंबर प्रोड्यूस करते हैं डाइट्स। तो ये इस तरह के गैप्स को एड्रेस करती है पॉलिसी और कहती है कि नाउ विल बी हैविंग ओनली 3 टाइप्स ऑफ टीचर एजुकेशन प्रोग्राम्स इन द कंट्री। One is 4 years BA BH integrated program. After class 12, a young child who wanted to pursue school teaching as career can go for this 4 years integrated program. Now this 4-year integrated program will not be in a standalone institution of education like CIE or Maharishi Valmiki College of Education, but this will be in a composite college A composite college where you can see multidiscipline institutions around, multidiscipline programs around you, BA, BSc, BCom, and education. So how this will help? This way, a student will not only be getting multidisciplinary aptitude, multidisciplinary understanding, but also getting a pedagogy for it, because it's BA, B.Ed, BSc, B.Ed, 4 years. So the long pending need in teacher education to have some quality changes with time, with enhanced time, is going to see day of light by this 4 years program. This 2 year program of B.Ed will remain in existence for few more years, and by 2029, 2030, only 4 year program will exist. For the postgraduates, after post graduation or after 4 year graduation, if somebody decides to go for the profession of teaching, he or she can go through 1 year B.Ed. So 1 year B.Ed will also be there. 1 year B.Ed will be coming back. So this 2 year B.Ed, which is, to my understanding, is wastage of young people's one, because in curriculum practices and in practicum we couldn't enhance it the way we have enhanced the time frame. Time frame has been enhanced without quality inputs in the program. So this teacher education program will also be getting into 3 major programs. 4 year program will take care of elementary teachers, primary teachers, and preschool teachers, as well as secondary teachers. So specializations would be there. If you want to focus on one pedagogy, your specialization, like in medical sciences. In first year of MBBS, everybody is going through same education. Second year, they start getting general physician, and then minor surgeries, and then internship. After that, they go for specializations. Similarly, here in 4 years, first 2 years would be general education component of BA as well as BSc along with education. And third and fourth year, you can focus on pedagogy for secondary or senior secondary or primary. Now this NCT need to have a little wider role to play in. It should try to change. This policy is giving upliftment to this NCT because it's now being known as professional body for teacher education. So it should be professional body which should not be only giving affiliation to new B.Ed colleges, but also looking into quality concerns in teacher education, revising and upgrading curriculum. You would be surprised to know that in teacher education, we do not have a national framework for internship. Internship component is there 6 months in this 2-year B.Ed program, but no national level framework has been evolved by any of the institution till date. So we need to look into such concerns, and of course, any policy is not perfect or not the best in it itself. With the gradual time, we can see multiple issues coming up. So we need to remain open-minded and keep welcoming situation-based and time-based demands for change in the policy. And this policy gives that flexibility that those changes can be accommodated for next 15 years, because policy document is not supposed to be there for 5 years. 5 years will be taken by us, you and me, to adapt to it, to approve it, and to actually see the plan of action there. How this plan of action will come will take another year or so. And then plan of actions execution will take another 4-5 years. And then those changes will start happening. So in 15 years, we'll see certain changes in education system. By 2013, we are. I'm sorry, connection got disconnected. I was just concluding by saying, now this is time. I think you heard me till end. Dr. Jyoti Sharma?
Yeah. In fact, last 2-3 lines you were not able to hear because the voice was breaking before it went completely off.
I was just saying that these 3 important domains which I have tried to present as in the beginning as overview, which can surely be discussed in different webinars of this series of 8 webinars: school education, higher education, and teacher education. So now I would love to hear from you, your observation, your question, your comment, whatever you want to do. I'm sure Dr. Jyoti Sharma might have a plan for this.
Thank you, Professor Arora, for a very, very detailed outline of the policy, because you raised some important issues, important points, perspectives with reference to the historical journey of national education policy in the country. May I request our moderators to please put up the questions which you people have organized, already planned and thought of, and Professor Arora will answer your question. And if there is something some student want to add or ask anything additional within that line of question, you can please write in the chat box. We are monitoring the chat box and we'll introduce the question to the speaker. Thank you.
So, hello everyone. Myself Sushant, and I'm one of the moderators. As ma'am was saying, we have some questions regarding the new education policy. So here is the first question by Nida. So the question is, the policy talks about the universalization of school education from 3 to 18 years. How can we achieve this target without bringing it into the ambit of RTE, that is right to education? Hello, sir.
Sushant, you can do one thing. You can also post the question to the chat box as well.
Okay.
So your question is, like, policy is talking of universalization of school education and how this can be done without right to education.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Your question is contradicting in itself. I think there is some confusion. Policy is not saying to do away with right to education. Policy is saying right to education domain should be enhanced and expanded to, instead of elementary education, it should be expanded to secondary education. So it's nothing like doing away with right to education. It's redefining right to education. Instead of elementary schooling, instead of class 6 years of age to 14 years of age, now policy is talking of right to education as from 3 years of age to 18 years of age. So 15 years of schooling need to be a part of right to education. And here I would like to add one important point I missed during my discussion. This right to technology need to be looked into, because now because of this pandemic thing, in under crisis, we shifted to this online model. But policy is talking of online education at a large scale, through ODL, through online courses, through SWAYAM, through different portals of Government of India. It's talking of introducing multiple channels of online. So for that reason, I would suggest now this policy must look into right to education, and right to technology should become part and parcel of right to education. So it should be right to education and right to technology should be fundamental right to the people if we are thinking of getting into digital mode of education, online education.
Okay. So the second question is by Robin. The question says, education policies since the past have recommended allocating 6% of GDP to education. Even the NEP 2020 mentions the 6% of GDP to education, but we are missing a concrete plan or a proposal as to how this might be actualized. So what are your thoughts on achieving this target?
This 6% of GDP should get spent on education is a long dream, even before my birth. Kothari Commission recommended that we should increase our expenditure on education and make it minimum 6% of our GDP. There are countries like Japan is spending 7% of its GDP on education. Malaysia is spending 11%. Since 1920 has attempted to raise the budget of education to 25%. So this struggle for increase in the expenditure on education is a long, uh, has a history. So gradually now we have reached to 4.5. 4.5% of GDP is being spent on education. But surely there is a need to have minimum of 6% of GDP on education. And for that, policy also shows its promise and determination to strive for this 6%, but that surely needs a willpower and surely need cut in many other expenditures of the government to give priority to education. But in education also we need to understand uh, which education we want to promote, which education we want to make compulsory and free. Do we want to make all education system up to post graduation level as a dependent model where people are uh, depending on system or the state to get their higher education, or we should want to shift to higher education should not be a claim but we should earn it by certain scholarships and then continue our research and higher education. So this also has become a political question to what stage we should grant free and compulsory education. Earlier it was up to class 8. Now it's a debate that up to class 12. And the moment we start discussing autonomy, the fear of privatization of higher education comes in between. For your knowledge and understanding, even bright, bestest universities of the world, Cambridge, Oxford, New York, etc., these universities are not government universities. These universities are maintaining their academic and research standards not because they are getting grants from government, but they are getting grants from industry as well, because they are getting funds from uh, the market forces as well, world institutions, UNICEF as well. So we need to understand to what extent we want to promote and advocate free and compulsory education. So this 6% debate is surely a genuine debate, which is a minimum one, and which is there pending for last more than 50 years now. And policy did mention that it will ensure 6% expenditure of GDP on education. But let us see how this willpower of political parties and the government allow us to see the day when we can have 6% of GDP on education. So this is nothing to do with policy. Policy is supporting it. But let's see how governments are coming out with their plan of action on it. But I am surely for it that this is minimum. Japan has 7%. With 7%, they are maintaining good academic standards. So 6%, 7% is minimum in the world.
So the next question is related to what you were just saying by Nida. The policy has opened the doors for foreign universities to have campuses in India. Will they provide reservation to economically poor students?
I don't think, because none of the private university is giving any sort of reservation, whether it is the way I mentioned Ashoka University or Jindal or Shivnadar for that reason or MIT for that purpose. None of the private universities following reservation. Even in entire industry sector, reservation has never been implemented. Though there are strives to bring reservation in private sector, previous government attempted, this government also talked of, but nothing happened. To my understanding, these international universities, when they will be coming to India, I don't think they will be following a constitutional binding, because they are not government funded universities. And this binding is there on government organizations or government funded institutions only. So even now, these private schools across the city, none of the private school is following any reservation. Though they are giving some seats to economically weaker section now, but no SC, ST, OBC reservation is there. And that OBC economically weaker section seats are there just because they are given subsidized land. So in lieu of that, they are supposed to provide quality education to economically weaker section children also. So that reservation is even not a caste-based reservation. So my answer is no. I don't think any international university would be following this practice of reservation?
In addition to this question, there is a question from one of the audience. Is it the policy paving way towards privatization of education, as it can be inferred from the policy inclination towards centralized structure?
Yeah. In the beginning, I said when a policy is announced, we must look at the policy in totality and should not hurriedly draw conclusions after looking at one aspect of the policy, because policy is not something which one part of the policy is saying one thing and another part of the policy is saying another thing. Policy in toto is governed by one ethos, one philosophy, one guiding principle. And this policy at no section, no chapter is talking of withdrawing its subsidy from existing educational institutions. I have carefully gone through it, and some time back, a panel discussion organized by Jawaharlal Nehru University, where our ex-Vice Chancellor Professor Dinesh Singh was also a speaker, along with Professor Jagdish Kumar and few more. So there also this question came up, and no provision in the policy is talking of that at the moment. We have to wait for the plan of action. What plan of action is bringing? Policy is not talking of privatization. Policy is not talking of withdrawing subsidy from any educational institution as of now. But plan of action surely would be more critical to look from this perspective. So that time we'll be able to say whether this policy is moving towards taking us towards privatization or no. At the moment, policy is talking of 6% of GDP, along with continuing. Policy has restructured the whole higher education model, like this governance of higher education has now been redefined by. I'm looking for my paper, if I can see it. Somewhere I have written that higher education institutions. This graded autonomy thing will surely be coming, and this higher education, I think I got my paper. This is talking of National Higher Education Regulatory Commission. So entire higher education would be brought under one large umbrella commission. It's not council, it's a commission which will have four bodies. Higher Education Commission of India will have four bodies. One is regulatory body, NHERC. One is NAC, to decide accreditation of the institution to maintain its quality standards. Another is Grants Council, which would be providing funds to higher education. And last is professional councils. The way I suggested, NCTE will be known as a professional council for teacher education. Vocational Education Council of India, ICAR, Agricultural Research Council. So these councils would be fourth part of this commission, which would be vertically located, vertically placed to each other. And this is not centralization, but centralization of, I see it in a different way. I say this is breaking the multi-layers into system. Like UGC is looking into liberal education, NCT is looking into it, AICTE is looking into another domain. So each agency have its own funding mechanism, have provision for curriculum, provision for accreditation. So instead of those things, only professional agency would look into academic and professional needs of the concerned institutions. All three agencies would, rest of the three agencies would be common. One is just regulating, one is just accreditation, one is granting funds. So instead of multi-institutions, this will bring into, I see, as I suggested, I look at I'm a positive person. So I see it like this business of red tapeism would adversely be affected. These bureaucratic channels would be minimized. Instead of multiple channels, there would be one channel for higher education grants and one for accreditation and one for regulation. For professional needs, there would be professional bodies, as I mentioned earlier. Jyoti, if you allow, I can read question from this Ranjan Kumar Sahu
Yeah,
is
yeah.
asking something
Yes,
in the
yes.
chat box.
Yes, you can see to it, and then probably Sushant will take up another question. Yeah.
He's asking, although the policy talks about multiple entry exit options, which is a positive point, but my concern is when a student back to his degree after 1 or 2 years of gap, what about his entry behavior? Entry behavior assessment. Is it okay to make entry only basis of his earned credits, or there should be some entry behavior assessment again to ensure the quality? See, Mr. Ranjan, as if now these logistics need to be spelled out. These logistics have not been spelled out. Policy is allowing multiple exit and multiple entry. If a student is coming back after 3 years, and in those 3 years, whatever curriculum changes have happened, he or she has to, even if a child is getting shifted from one school to another, the new school always take an entrance test or a brief interview with the child, just to make sure that child is at par with the standards of the new school. So if a person is coming after 3 years, he or she need to get himself refreshed. I am no authority to say at this stage whether this would be assessment again or this would be on the basis of earlier earned credits. That will be seen in the plan of action itself. But for sure, this multiple entry exit at a policy level is a welcoming step. Logistics need to be worked out. Logistics can be worked out in support in favor of students. I appreciate, and those should be allowed at the time of rejoining without any formal assessment again. This is my understanding. But let us wait for plan of action to come, how universities behave to it. Here I can cite you another example of CBCS curriculum, credit-based choice curriculum system, which allow students to shift from one university to another university. But practically this couldn't happen. Not a single case is there in the country in last 4 years of CBCS model that a student has been shifted from Kushetra University to Delhi University or from Odisha University to Jawaharlal Nehru University. Nothing of that sort has happened as of now. So this policy is providing a provision, but how that provision is actualized in the system, for that we have to wait. Another question by I do not know PS. इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है कि हमारी नई शिक्षा नीति बहुआयामी है और नई जनरेशन को लक्षित करती है, परंतु जिस प्रकार से ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में संसाधनों का अभाव और शिक्षण स्तर में गिरावट पाई गई है, उसमें नई शिक्षा नीति को किस प्रकार से प्रभावी बनाया जा सकता है? ये डिबेट नया नहीं है. रूरल अर्बन डिवाइड, अब तो डिजिटल डिवाइड भी हम देख रहे हैं सोसाइटी में एग्जिस्ट करता है, एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में एग्जिस्ट करता है. तो ये डिवाइड सिर्फ एजुकेशन की कंसर्न नहीं है, ये एक सोशल कंसर्न है. आपके टीचर इंचार्ज जो डॉक्टर ज्योति शर्मा इज अ पर्सन ऑफ इंक्लूजन. So social inclusion is important at this domain when we see a change in rural education and in urban education. Similar change we can see in all sectors of services. Health sector, quality hospitals and qualified staff is there in the urban hospitals. In rural area, people have to travel 20 kilometers to reach a dispensary. So these challenges are not specific to education, but to society in general. And this policy is not talking of something of this sort, because policy, I am repeatedly saying the same thing. Policy is not supposed to provide logistics. Policy is to provide a vision. Policy is supposed to provide a ethos. And ethos and vision is not allowing any sort of discrimination. It is in the introduction itself, it is saying that constitutional values would be promoted, constitutional duties would be promoted. So people from all walks of life should be getting quality education. This is a concern in the introduction of policy itself. But reality में क्या possible होगा, क्या नहीं होगा, हम हेल्थ सेक्टर में ऐसा नहीं कर पाए, हम एम्प्लॉयमेंट सेक्टर में ऐसा नहीं कर पाए, हम प्रवासी मजदूरों की हालत अभी अभी देख के हटे हैं 4 महीने के लॉकडाउन के पीरियड में. तो ये कुछ ऐसी हार्ड रियलिटीज हैं जो एजुकेशन से स्पेसिफिक नहीं जुड़ती हैं, वो बहुत जेनरिक नेचर की हैं जो सोसाइटी में कहीं ना कहीं अपनी जगह बना चुकी हैं. तो अगर आप जैसे और मुझ जैसे और लोग इसको एड्रेस करेंगे और इस डिवाइड को भरना चाहेंगे तो ये लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोसेस से होगा. अगर मैं कहूँ कि ये 10 साल में होगा, नहीं होगा, ये 50 साल में होगा. 50 साल में अगर हम अर्बन रूरल डिवाइड को 72 इयर्स ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस में अभी नहीं भर पाए तो पॉलिसी कोई वंडर करने या कोई मिरेकल करने नहीं जा रही. तो उस गैप को जो सिर्फ एजुकेशन सेंट्रिक नहीं है, इट इज मल्टी सेंट्रिक, मल्टीपल फेसेस हैं इसके. सो पॉलिसी लेकिन जैसे मैंने कहा विजन है, इथॉस है, तो पॉलिसी अपने आप में क्वालिटी एजुकेशन फॉर ऑल की बात करती है. अब वो क्वालिटी एजुकेशन फॉर ऑल में अब टीचर्स कहाँ कैसे होंगे, अब इंटरनेट कहाँ कैसा है, ओपन बुक एग्जामिनेशन के केसेस आपके सामने हैं, कहाँ के बच्चे दे पा रहे हैं, कहाँ के नहीं दे पा रहे हैं. तो इस तरह के चैलेंजेस हमेशा से थे. आई डोंट नो वो कब जाके खत्म होंगे. डॉक्टर ज्योति जी ने कुछ कहा है, आई एग्री विद यू. आप किस पॉइंट पे कह रही हैं ज्योति जी, आप बताना चाहोगे? What point is this?
No, I was responding to Mr. Ranjan's opinion. Fine. Maybe we request Sushant to please continue next question. Meanwhile, we can take up other questions simultaneously.
सर मेरा एक डाउट है, अभी जो आप कह रहे थे कि वो इनइक्वालिटी बहुत दिनों से बना हुआ है और वो 50 सालों में जाकर ठीक हो सकता है, लेकिन अगर अभी हम उसको एड्रेस नहीं करेंगे और बिना एजुकेशन के उसको ठीक हो पाना तो और ज्यादा मुश्किल हो जाएगा.
सुशांत, मैंने ये कहा कि पॉलिसी एक विजन देती है, पॉलिसी एक इथॉस, एक फिलॉसफी लेके आती है. पॉलिसी इज लाइक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की प्रीएम्बल अगर हम पढ़ते हैं तो प्रीएम्बल कहती है कि वी वांट अ स्टेट विच विल सेलिब्रेट लिबर्टी, इक्वालिटी एंड जस्टिस. फिर वो जस्टिस को स्पेल आउट करती है, सोशल, इकोनॉमिक, पॉलिटिकल. तो ये एक विजन है व्हाट टाइप ऑफ सोसाइटी वी वांट टू बी. ये विजन हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मेकर्स ने हमें दिया था 1950s में. उस विजन के साथ हम आज चल रहे हैं. अब उस विजन को आज की डेट में हम असेसमेंट करते हैं तो हमें लगता है अभी तो बहुत कुछ करना बाकी है. और अगर हम पिछले 70 साल में देखते हैं तो हम ऐसा नहीं कह सकते कि कुछ नहीं हुआ. कुछ हुआ है, बदलाव आया है. मैं ना एडोलेसेंस एजुकेशन का स्टूडेंट हूँ, तो एडोलेसेंस एजुकेशन का जब करिकुलम में पढ़ाता हूँ, सेक्स एजुकेशन में मैंने स्पेशलाइज किया था डॉक्टरेट अपना, तो उसमें लोग मुझसे बात करते हैं कि सर ये एडोलेसेंस एजुकेशन के जब बीएड स्टूडेंट डिस्कस करते हैं, दे कीप आस्किंग कि ये माइंडसेट कब चेंज होगा. ये गर्लफ्रेंड बॉयफ्रेंड को आज भी एक जनरेशन, एक रीजन, एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट, रूरल का एक रिजिडिटी का, कंजर्वेटिव पॉपुलेशन का, आज भी उसको क्यों एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर पा रहा. तो ये जो ओपननेस है, तो मैं उनको ये कहता हूँ कि ये जो चेंज है इस एडोलेसेंस एजुकेशन को मैं आपको पढ़ाता हूँ. तो हम क्लास में सब कुछ डिस्कस करते हैं. हम क्लास में बॉयज गर्ल्स रिलेशनशिप से लेकर पेरेंट्स, सेक्सुअल एंड रिप्रोडक्टिव हेल्थ से लेकर लाइफ स्किल्स, पॉपुलेशन कंट्रोल मैकेनिज्म सब डिस्कस करते हैं. मुझसे पुराने जो टीचर जिनसे मैं पढ़ा हूँ, जिनसे ज्योति जी पढ़ी हैं, शायद हम लोगों से इतनी खुल के, मेरी क्लास में सेक्सुअल इंटरकोर्स की बात होती है, मेरी क्लास में कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव्स की बात होती है, मेरी क्लास में लिव इन रिलेशनशिप की बात होती है. मेरी से पिछली जनरेशन जो थी, जिनसे ज्योति जी पढ़ी है, मैं पढ़ा हूँ, शायद वो इन मुद्दों पे इतनी खुली हुई नहीं थी. तो ये बदलाव नहीं तो क्या है. मेरे बच्चों को जो पेरेंट्स मिले हैं वो शायद ओपन माइंडेड है. आपके बच्चों को जो पेरेंट्स मिलेंगे वो और ज्यादा ओपन माइंडेड होंगे. तो ये चेंज जो है, तो मैं अपने एडोलेसेंस एजुकेशन के स्टूडेंट्स को ये समझाता हूँ कि जो कंजर्वेटिव और स्टीरियोटाइप ओपिनियन पिछले 200 साल में बने हैं, 300 साल में बने हैं, वो अगले 10 साल में नहीं जाएंगे. उनको जाने में, उनको हिलाने में, उनकी जड़ें हिलाने में ही 50 साल लग जाएंगे. इस बात को समझने में कि दीज आर मैटर्स ऑफ एकेडमिक डिस्कशंस, उसी को समझने में। और एडोलेसेंस एजुकेशन, सेक्स एजुकेशन, आपको पता है आज भी सिवाय सीआई के पूरे इंडिया में किसी बीएड कॉलेज में नहीं पढ़ाया जाता। तो जब इस प्रोग्राम को इंट्रोड्यूस करने की तरफ इस तरह का रिजिड सोच है, तो इस प्रोग्राम को लागू करने की तरफ तो जनरेशंस निकलेंगी। जिस तरह जनरेशंस ने एक्यूमुलेट करके उन वैल्यूज को, कंजर्वेटिव वैल्यूज को या कन्वेंशनल वैल्यूज को इस्टेब्लिश किया है, अब चेंज करना, शेक करना, मूव करना विल ऑल्सो बी टेकिंग सम टाइम। इंपॉर्टेंट है देयर मस्ट बी अ वाइब्रेशन, इंपॉर्टेंट है देयर मस्ट बी समथिंग हैपनिंग, वी शुड बी टॉकिंग ऑफ इट। अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं, अगर हम उस विजन को देख रहे हैं, अगर हम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज को प्रीएम्बल में समझ रहे हैं, तो हम उसकी तरफ मूव कर रहे हैं। कब पहुंचेंगे, ना मेरे पास आंसर है, ना आपके पास आंसर है, ना गवर्नमेंट के पास आंसर है। 72 साल तो हो गए। ऐसे ही ये एजुकेशन पॉलिसी इस तरह के डिवाइड को कब खत्म कर पाएगी या नहीं कर पाएगी, मेरे पास आंसर नहीं है। क्योंकि इसको डिबेट को देखते हुए रिच एंड पुअर का डिवाइड 1969 में जब गवर्नमेंट गरीबी हटाओ मूवमेंट की तरह एक मूवमेंट लाई थी, तो लगा था शायद गरीबी हट जाएगी। लेकिन 69 का अगर पॉवर्टी का स्टैटिस्टिक्स देखें, लोगों की हालत देखें, लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड देखें, और 2020 में देखें, यू विल फाइंड लेस डिफरेंस। ना स्टैटिस्टिक्स में ज्यादा चेंज आया, ना लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड्स में आया। स्टैटिस्टिक्स एक गेम है, उसमें आप पॉवर्टी की डेफिनेशन को दोबारा कर दीजिए और नीचे ले जाइए और नीचे ले जाइए, लिटरेसी की डेफिनेशन को चेंज करते जाइए, तो आपको ऐसा इल्यूजन हो सकता है कि पॉवर्टी कम हो गई है। लेकिन अगर पॉवर्टी कम हो गई है तो ये भूखे क्यों सो गए हैं लोग, सड़कों पे आज भी क्यों है, रेड लाइट पे छोटे बच्चे आज भी क्यों? अगर राइट टू एजुकेशन इंप्लीमेंट हो गया, सब बच्चे स्कूल में आ गए, तो क्या आप और मैं डेली कम से कम 100 बच्चे ऐसे नहीं देखते जो स्कूल से बाहर है? डेली हम और आप दोनों देखते हैं, तो फिर वो कहाँ से हैं? तो इन बातों के जवाब सिस्टम के पास भी नहीं होते। सोसाइटी का जो इवोल्यूशन है, जो डेवलपमेंट है, जो चेंज है, उसका अपना एक पेस है। उसमें पॉजिटिविटी, उसमें इंक्लूजन के, जस्टिस के, लिबर्टी के वैल्यूज बने रहने चाहिए, वो खत्म ना हो जाए, ये इसके लिए हमें अलर्ट रहना होगा। लेकिन वो मुझे कल ही मिल जाएंगे ऐसा सोचना अपने आप को धोखा देना है। मैं ऐसा अपनी पर्सनल लाइफ में नहीं कह सकता, फिर नेशनल लाइफ में कैसे कहूंगा?
Yes, sir. So can I ask the
Question,
next
Sushant? Yeah.
So
Sushant,
next-
is there?
Yes, ma'am. Next question is by Pooja and Ghanshyam. So as suggested by previous policies and pedagogues, mother tongue should be the most preferred medium of instruction till primary grades. So does the NEP 2020 propose the same recommendation for middle grades also? This is the first question. Second is it practical to ignore the English language that is the global language today? And the third one is, how do we prepare our students for the change in the medium of instructions after the move out of the mother tongue ambit?
Can you repeat your third question? Medium of instruction? How
The
can
third
we?
question is, how do we prepare our students for the change in the medium of instructions after the move out of the mother tongue ambit?
I think, basically, probably it is कि after maybe primary. So when the medium of instruction is not mother tongue only, it can be in any other medium or in English medium. So the transition, how we can have a smooth transition.
Yeah. As I mentioned in my opening remark, that this policy is talking of mother tongue. This is a major shift in language policy. Kothari Commission had recommended that all primary education should be in mother tongue. The medium of instruction should be mother tongue or regional language for that reason, wherever the region is there. And educational psychology is supporting this idea of Kothari Commission. It is suggesting a child learn better in his or her own family language. One language child is speaking and seeing and listening around him at home for initial 3 years of his or her age. And when he or she comes out of home to a school, all of a sudden he see a big shift in a language from his mother tongue to another language. That may be English, maybe some other Hindi language. Now, this early tender age of 3 to 4 years of child is not a age to get into this contradiction of language, but to this is an stage, as I suggested in the beginning. This is a stage when he or she should be developing perception. So instead of building perception, he or she is spending lot of energy in managing this language at school and language at home. This is a long pending demand and request from academic world that first language of child should be home language, and all education at primary level should be allowed in his or her regional or home language only. Vygotsky, Piaget, those who have defined learning context, Vygotsky beautifully defined constructivism when he or she says the surroundings of child also help him or her to learn a lot of things. So lot of examples are there, lot of vocabulary is there, lot of incidents are there, incidents which are impacting child in a positive manner or in a negative manner, both are there. So it's more smooth and sailing if child continues to be coming to school and using his mother tongue as a language. Now I give you another example. There was a question about children from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh that reminded me. When first time a young child of Bihar or Uttar Pradesh, or for any reason, any part of India, remote part of India, rural part of India, comes to Delhi University, because Delhi University is a university which is a central university and welcome all children, all young people from all parts of the country. When they come to Delhi, they find a cultural shock. Many of them in my own institution during B.Ed, they say, sir, it take me 3 months to adapt to this lifestyle in Delhi. The way people talk to each other, their eating habits, their sleeping style, they keep busy on social media till midnight, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. How are they managing their education? What about their physical fitness? Gradually, after 2 years, they also adapt to this new lifestyle in Delhi. This is happening. Now, if a young man or young woman of 2022 who is coming from one cultural background to another cultural background is finding a shock, then you can easily imagine the state of a young child who is 3 years or 4 years. अगर हमें इस मेट्रोपॉलिटन कल्चर को अडेप्ट करने में 1 साल के आसपास, 6 महीने के आसपास लगता है, 1 साल के आसपास लगता है. बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स को आपको पता होगा काउंसलिंग की जरूरत पड़ जाती है. बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स आपको ये भी पता होगा अपने इनिशियल 6 महीने में ही दिल्ली छोड़ के भाग जाते हैं. दिस इज अनफॉर्चुनेट बट दिस इज रियलिटी. तो जब हम एडल्ट्स एक नए कल्चर को, एक नई लैंग्वेज को, एक नए लाइफस्टाइल को अडेप्ट करने में इतना टाइम लेते हैं, तो हम में से बहुत सारे लोगों की शिकायत है, स्पेशली दोज हु आर फ्रॉम रीजनल बैकग्राउंड, जो हिंदी मीडियम में हैं या अपने रीजनल मीडियम में पढ़ाई के पास नॉलेज की कमी है, समझ की कमी है, उनका इंटेलेक्ट में कमी है. ये कहीं आज तक किसी स्टडी में प्रूव नहीं हुआ, लेकिन वो लैंग्वेज के प्रेशर में अपनी इंटेलिजेंस को पीछे कर देते हैं. वो दे आर नॉट स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड, दे आर नॉट कमिंग फोर्थ. वो आगे बढ़ चढ़ के हिस्सा नहीं लेते बहुत सारी एक्टिविटीज में, डिस्कशंस में, क्वेश्चनिंग में. क्यों? क्योंकि उन्हें एक तो ये प्रेशर डील करना है कि मेरी लैंग्वेज ठीक होगी, मेरे पास वोकेबलरी है, और फिर उन्हें अपने क्वेश्चन को आर्टिकुलेट करना है. उसी क्वेश्चन को वो अपनी लैंग्वेज में, जिस बैकग्राउंड से वो बिलोंग करते हैं, वहां बड़ा अच्छा आर्टिकुलेट कर पाता है. लेकिन एक नए एनवायरनमेंट में उस लैंग्वेज के, अगेन मैं वर्ड यूज करूंगा कि वो लैंग्वेज की जो हेजमनी एजुकेशन पे बन गई है, उसने कहीं ना कहीं उसको प्रेशर दिया, और जो आसपास के साथी थे उनका ड्रेसिंग स्टाइल, उनका गैजेट्स यूज करने का जो स्टैंडर्ड है, वो कहीं ना कहीं उसको एक फील देता है कि आई एम नॉट एट पार विद देम. यही प्रॉब्लम इकोनॉमिकली वीकर सेक्शन बच्चे की है जब वो एक पब्लिक स्कूल में एडमिशन लेता है. आप, मुझे नहीं पता एजुकेशन में आप कितना इंटरेस्ट रखते हैं या इस तरह के डेजर्टेशंस आपने पढ़े होंगे। इकोनॉमिकली वीकर सेक्शन के बच्चों को 25% रिजर्वेशन देके प्राइवेट स्कूल में सीट देना इज वन प्रोविजन। उनका सोशल इंक्लूजन होना इज अ ग्रेटर चैलेंज। आज भी वो बच्चा स्कूल में अलग से पहचाना जाता है क्योंकि वो इकोनॉमिकली वीकर सेक्शन का है। क्यों पहचाना जा रहा है? उसकी ड्रेस, उसके जूते, उसकी स्टेशनरी, उसका हेयर स्टाइल, उसका टिफिन, ये सब रिफ्लेक्ट करता है कि वो इकोनॉमिकली वीकर सेक्शन का है। तो हमने उसको फिजिकली तो इंक्लूजन दिया, लेकिन इमोशनली और सोशली इंक्लूजन तो नहीं दिया। यही चैलेंज लैंग्वेज को लेकर है। एक घर से पॉलिसी कहती है कि मदर टंग में अगर बच्चा सीखेगा तो उसकी सीखने की, और मैंने जैसे कहा था कि उसकी कॉम्पिटेंसीज का टेस्ट होगा, भाषा का टेस्ट नहीं होगा। कॉग्निटिव डेवलपमेंट सिर्फ नहीं जांचा जाएगा, उसकी एबिलिटीज जांची जाएंगी, उसकी पर्सनैलिटी को देखा जाएगा। तो अगर वो अपनी भाषा में ज्यादा अच्छा परफॉर्म करता है तो व्हाई शुड नॉट वी अलाउ हिम और हर टू बी नर्चर्ड इन हिज और हर ओन लैंग्वेज। दूसरा सवाल जो है कि इंग्लिश को हम कम कर सकते हैं। इंग्लिश को और हिंदी को या तमिल को या गुजराती को लाने का झगड़ा नहीं है। झगड़ा है प्राइमरी एजुकेशन को मदर टंग में देने का। वो मदर टंग गुजराती है तो गुजराती में, तमिल है तो तमिल में, बांग्ला है तो बांग्ला में, पंजाबी है तो पंजाबी में। वो ये नहीं कह रही कि एक भाषा होगी सब बच्चों की। वो कह रही जो रीजनल, जिस रीजन में बच्चा रहता है, जिस एनवायरमेंट में बच्चा रहता है, वहां की भाषा बोलेगा। वहां की भाषा में करिकुलम होगा, टेक्स्ट बुक्स होंगी, क्लासरूम डिस्कशंस होंगे, ताकि वो बच्चा एक जो दूसरा प्रेशर है लैंग्वेज को सीखने का, एक नए, वो लैंग्वेज जो स्कूल में बोलता है घर जाके बोलता ही नहीं है क्योंकि घर में उसकी दूसरी भाषा बोली जाती है। तो उस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट से उस बच्चे को बचाने की अटेम्प्ट है। और जैसे मैंने कहा कि ये अटेम्प्ट फिर से नई नहीं है, ये कोठारी कमीशन की 1966 की रिकमेंडेशन थी और इसको आज तक पूरे वर्ल्ड में सारी एजुकेशनल लर्निंग थ्योरीज ने सपोर्ट किया है। एक भी लर्निंग थ्योरी नहीं है जो कहती हो कि मेघालय के बच्चे को पंजाबी में पढ़ाओ तो ज्यादा अच्छा सीखेगा। वो कहती है मेघालय के बच्चे को वहां की लोकल लैंग्वेज में पढ़ाओ, गुजरात के बच्चे को गुजराती में पढ़ाओ, पंजाब के बच्चे को पंजाबी में पढ़ाओ। जैसे जैसे वो बड़ा होगा, फाउंडेशन एजुकेशन की फेस, फाउंडेशन एजुकेशन के लिए ये बात है, उसके बाहर आएगा तो वो उसकी रीजनल लैंग्वेज के साथ साथ एक नेशनल लैंग्वेज को आप जोड़ दीजिए। वो चाहे हिंदी है, चाहे वो 22 जो हमारी नेशनल लैंग्वेजेस है उनमें से कोई भी हो सकती है, तो उसमें भी ऐसी पाबंदी नहीं है कि कौन सी होगी। तो जितना लैंग्वेजेस को लेके पॉलिसी सेंसिटिव है, आपको याद होगा लास्ट ईयर जब पॉलिसी का ड्राफ्ट आया था तभी इस पे कंट्रोवर्सी आ गई थी कि पॉलिसी हिंदी थोपना चाहती है। तो फिर ये प्रूव करना पड़ा था एकेडमिशियंस को, पॉलिसी मेकर्स को, कि इसमें ऐसा एक भी सेंटेंस नहीं है जो कहता है कि हिंदी कंपलसरी होगी। ये कहता है रीजनल लैंग्वेज, नेशनल लैंग्वेज। अब आप नेशनल लैंग्वेज को हिंदी तक मान रहे हैं तो ये आपके मानने में कहीं फर्क है। आप 22 लैंग्वेजेस को क्यों नहीं देखना चाहते? उनमें से कोई भी भाषा हो सकती है। तो इस झगड़े को हैंडल करने में काफी एनर्जी और टाइम गया, जो जायज था। मैं ये नहीं कहना चाहता कि वो गलत था, तो बिल्कुल जायज था। इस तरह का एप्रीहेंशन हमारे सामने था, तो पॉलिसी मेकर्स की जिम्मेवारी बनती है कि उसे दूर करे, उसे क्लैरिफाई करे कि इस तरह का कुछ भी पॉलिसी में नहीं आने जा रहा। गवर्नमेंट इस तरह की पॉलिसी में किसी भी लैंग्वेज को थोपने नहीं जा रही। तो इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज या हिंदी लैंग्वेज का झगड़ा नहीं है, मल्टी लैंग्वेज का झगड़ा है। मल्टी लैंग्वेज, हम एक मल्टीलिंगुअल सोसाइटी हैं, हमारे पास 500 बोलियां हैं। वन ऑफ माय स्कॉलर हैज डन हर PhD ऑन ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन ऑफ छत्तीसगढ़। अब आपको हैरानी होगी कि ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन ऑफ छत्तीसगढ़ में हमने देखा NCF दिल्ली में बना, SCF स्टेट करिकुलम फ्रेमवर्क छत्तीसगढ़ ने बनाया, DCF डिस्ट्रिक्ट करिकुलम फ्रेमवर्क उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट ने बनाया अपना अलग, लोकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट को ध्यान में रख के। और यहां तक छूट दी कि DCF के बाद BCF भी बन सकता है। छत्तीसगढ़ की डाइवर्सिटी को अगर आप जानते होंगे तो इट्स फुल ऑफ डाइवर्सिटी, स्पेशली इन लैंग्वेजेस। तो ब्लॉक करिकुलम फ्रेमवर्क तक अलाउ करती है छत्तीसगढ़ की सिस्टम, और उसके बाद वहां हर 2 कोर्स पे बोली बदल जाती है। तो बोली का झगड़ा कि बच्चे को किस भाषा में सिखाएं, जितना डीप रूटेड ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में है, शायद उतना डीप रूटेड अर्बन और रूरल के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में नहीं है। तो बोली जो बच्चे की अपनी बोली है, जो 4-5 साल तक वो परिवार से बाहर वो निकलता ही नहीं है। तो जहाँ रहता है वहाँ जो भाषा सीखता है उसी में उसको आप एकेडमिक कॉम्पिटेंस का मौका देते हैं, तो आप उसको फैसिलिटेट करते हैं, और ये फैसिलिटेशन टाइम की डिमांड है जो होना चाहिए। Yes, Sushant.
Sir, while explaining guiding principles of the policy, you said we want to get rid of Macaulayan education and to celebrate Indian knowledge system. So, could you please explain the difference between Macaulayan education and Indian knowledge system?
मैंने उस टाइम ये कहा कि मैकॉलियन मॉडल जो इंग्लिश एजुकेशन का आया था, वो मैकॉलियन मॉडल को हम सब लोग जानते हैं कि उसके पीछे स्पिरिट ये कहा गया था कि देखने में भारतीय और सोच में अंग्रेज। तो चीप लेबर और अपने गवर्नमेंट सिस्टम को चलाने के लिए सिस्टम का रिक्वायरमेंट था कि वो ऐसे लोग तैयार करे जो इंग्लिश वर्क स्टाइल, इंग्लिश वर्क कल्चर, इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज में काम कर सके। बाबू चाहिए थे, ऑफिसर नहीं चाहिए थे उन्होंने इंग्लिश एजुकेशन इंडिया में ब्यूरोक्रेट्स देने के लिए नहीं की थी, ऑफिसर तो अंग्रेज चाहते थे अपने हाथ में रखना। तो मैकॉलियन मॉडल जो था वो, वहाँ हमने बड़ा एक इम्पॉर्टेंट फ्रेज सुना है कि एक एल्मिरा ऑफ इंग्लिश लिटरेचर इज मच बेटर देन एन लाइब्रेरी ऑफ अ डिफरेंट लिटरेचर। तो अगर ये जो इस तरह के सुपीरियरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स के साथ जो एजुकेशन मॉडल इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया था हमारी कंट्री में, उसने लोकल इंडिजिनियस नॉलेज को कहीं ना कहीं पीछे छोड़ दिया, डिग्रेड कर दिया। अब इस इंडिजिनियस नॉलेज को आज के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर मैं कहता हूँ लोकल हिस्ट्री इंपॉर्टेंट है समझनी, ग्लोबल विलेज इंपॉर्टेंट है समझना, तो एक तरफ है लोकल हिस्ट्री, एक तरफ है ग्लोबल विलेज। अब इन दोनों के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर मैं जोड़ूं, तो अगर मेरे लिए ग्लोबल विलेज की चैलेंजेस और लाइफस्टाइल को समझना इंपॉर्टेंट है, तो उतना ही इंपॉर्टेंट मेरे लिए लोकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट को समझना भी है। इंडियन नॉलेज, इंडियन एजुकेशन, जैसे मैंने अभी एक कहीं पर कुछ चर्चा थी, तो वहाँ था भारतीयता की शिक्षा। तो उसमें ऑर्गेनाइजर ने शुरू में मुझसे पूछा कि भारतीयता की शिक्षा कब, क्यों और कैसे, इस पे आप बात कीजिए। अब भारतीयता की शिक्षा भारत में नहीं होगी तो मुझे नहीं लगता कहीं और होगी। अगर इंडियननेस की एजुकेशन पे बात, हम इंडियननेस को अपनी एजुकेशन का हिस्सा बनाना चाहते हैं, तो इस पे सवाल क्यों है, मुझे इस सवाल से परेशानी है। इंडियननेस, विश्व में इतने सारे देश हैं जो अपने कल्चर, अपने ट्रेडिशन, अपनी लैंग्वेजेस को में ही पढ़ते हैं, पढ़ाते हैं, अपनी लोकल नॉलेज को पहले समझते हैं, ग्लोबल कॉन्टेक्स्ट को बाद में समझते हैं। तो हम इंडिया में इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम को क्यों सेकंड ग्रेड दर्जा दिए हुए हैं, ये परेशानी है मुझे और बहुत सारे भारतीय शिक्षकों को। क्योंकि हमने, देखिए, नॉलेज हेजमनी वेस्ट के पास है। वेस्ट में जो रिसर्चेस होती हैं, हम उन रिसर्चेस के 10 साल बाद उन्हें इनोवेशन मानते हैं और उन्हें फॉलो करना स्टार्ट करते हैं। तब तक वेस्ट 10 साल आगे चला जाता है। जैसे एजुकेशन में मैं एग्जांपल देना चाहूँगा, हम क्रिटिकल पेडागॉजी को डिस्कस करते हैं। अब क्रिटिकल पेडागॉजी का नाम आता है तो कुछ वेस्टर्न थिंकर्स के नाम आते हैं, कुछ रिसेंट जर्मन थिंकर है उसमें, फ्रेंच थिंकर हैं उसमें, उनका नाम लिया जाता है और कहा जाता है इन्होंने ये सिखाया सवाल पूछना, इन्होंने ये सिखाया नए तरीके से चाइल्ड सेंट्रिक एजुकेशन का करना, इन्होंने ये सिखाया कि आप सिस्टम में क्या हो रहा है से अच्छा क्यों हो रहा है को समझें। तो मैंने अपने उस डिस्कशन में गिजू भाई का एग्जाम्पल देकर, जे कृष्णामूर्ति का एग्जाम्पल देकर, सावित्री बाई फुले का एग्जाम्पल देकर, महात्मा गांधी का एग्जाम्पल देकर ये समझाना चाहा कि अगर ये रिफॉर्मिस्ट सोशल एजुकेशन के फील्ड में काम नहीं करते, गिजू भाई ने जॉयफुल लर्निंग का कॉन्सेप्ट कितना अच्छा दिया, लेकिन हम जॉयफुल लर्निंग जब भी याद करते हैं तो जॉन डीवी को याद करते हैं। हम गिजू भाई को क्यों प्रमोट नहीं कर पाए? जे कृष्णामूर्ति सोचने के लिए और प्रश्न उठाने के लिए हमें प्रेरित करते हैं। उनका एजुकेशन मॉडल ही सोचने का और प्रेरित करने का है, ग्लोबल कॉन्टेक्स्ट का है। लेकिन हम ग्लोबल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बात करेंगे तो न्यू लिबरल थिंकर्स की बात करेंगे तो हम जे कृष्णा मूर्ति को क्यों नहीं सेलिब्रेट करना चाहते? बेसिक एजुकेशन का मॉडल महात्मा गांधी ने दिया, वर्धा प्लान दिया। तो महात्मा गांधी ने जो वर्धा एजुकेशन मॉडल दिया, जिसमें वोकेशनल एजुकेशन को इतना स्ट्रांगली इनवाइब किया हुआ था, तो हम उससे पहले बैंकिंग मॉडल को क्यों समझना चाहते हैं वेस्टर्न के? तो ये जो इंडियन नॉलेज के जो पिलर हैं, इतने एक्सपेरिमेंट्स हैं, आज भी आप देखें तो भारत में एजुकेशन सेक्टर में अरबिंदो को आप समझें, तो इन एजुकेशन मॉडल्स को अगर आप समझें तो ये इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट के लिए हैं। मैं अपनी क्लास में पढ़ाता हूँ, जैसे हम स्कूल के टीचर्स तैयार करने का काम करते हैं, तो वहाँ बात आती है कि हम जो टीचिंग मेथड्स पढ़ते पढ़ाते हैं, वो ज़्यादातर टीचिंग मेथड्स वेस्टर्न कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हैं। माइक्रो टीचिंग, एक टीचर एक स्टूडेंट। पढ़ा रहा हूँ मैं बीएड को, ये भी जानता हूँ कि भारत में संभव नहीं है। भारत में संभव है सिर्फ ट्यूशन कल्चर में, फॉर्मल स्कूल सिस्टम में संभव नहीं है माइक्रो टीचिंग। फॉर्मल स्कूल सिस्टम में एंगेज करना स्टूडेंट्स को मेरी स्पिरिट हो सकती है, इन्वॉल्वमेंट करना, लर्निंग बाय डूइंग करना मेरी स्पिरिट हो सकती है। लेकिन जो वेस्ट में इसके उदाहरण दिए गए थे, वो 20 की क्लास फुल ऑफ रिसोर्सेज, इक्विपमेंट्स और पढ़े लिखे पेरेंट्स के बच्चों वाली क्लास थी। मैं जिस गांव में पढ़ाता हूँ वो तो मल्टी क्लास स्कूल है, मैं सिंगल टीचर स्कूल हूँ। 6 साल का बच्चा भी वहीं बैठा है, 8 साल का बच्चा भी बैठा है, 12 साल का बच्चा भी बैठा है। अब मुझे मल्टी क्लास स्कूल के अंदर एक ही टाइम पे तीनों बच्चों को अटेंड करना है। तो ये वेस्टर्न मॉडल कामयाब आएगा या इंडिजिनस मॉडल मुझे इवॉल्व करना पड़ेगा? तो इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जैसे मैंने कुछ थिंकर्स के नाम दिए, चाहे वो गीजू भाई हैं, चाहे वो जे कृष्णा मूर्ति हैं, अरबिंदो हैं, गांधी हैं, टैगोर से ज़्यादा लिबरल एजुकेशन किसने सोची? वो तो फॉर्मल सिस्टम का हिस्सा कभी थे ही नहीं। वो तो खुद ही नेचुरलिस्ट थिंकर माने जाते हैं, प्रकृतिवादी हैं। तो हम अगर लिबरल थिंकिंग, लिबरल एजुकेशन का मॉडल देखना चाहते हैं, तो हम टैगोर को क्यों नहीं समझना चाहते? तो जब मैंने ये कहा कि हम इंडियन नॉलेज को सेलिब्रेट करना चाहते हैं, तो ये जो मैंने कुछ उदाहरण अपने फील्ड से दिए, ऐसे बहुत सारे उदाहरण मैथमेटिक्स के फील्ड में भी हैं। प्रोफेसर दिनेश सिंह ने अपने उस लेक्चर में बड़े स्ट्रांगली इंडियन मैथमेटिक्स के कई मॉडल्स उन्होंने डिस्कस किए। आई एम नॉट अ एक्सपर्ट ऑफ मैथमेटिक्स, मैं इतना अच्छा नहीं बता पाऊंगा, लेकिन अगर आपके मैथमेटिक्स के फैकल्टी मेंबर्स जो आपके CIC में हैं, दे मे बी एबल टू टेल यू। प्रोफेसर शोभा बगई, प्रोफेसर ज्योति शर्मा, ये लोग मैथमेटिक्स के हैं, इन लोगों को ज़्यादा अच्छा पता होंगे वो मॉडल्स क्या थे। तो कंसर्न ये नहीं है कि हम एक को हटा के दूसरा लाएं। पॉलिसी ये नहीं कहती कि आप एग्जिस्टिंग एजुकेशन में इंडियन एजुकेशन से रिप्लेस कर दीजिए, वो कहती है इंडियन एजुकेशन, इंडियन नॉलेज, इंडियन ज्ञान को भी जगह दीजिए। और इसकी मांग, फिर से मैं रिपीट करता हूँ अपने आप को, भारतीयता की मांग भारत में नहीं होगी तो कम से कम कजाकिस्तान में तो नहीं होगी, कम से कम बलूचिस्तान में तो नहीं होगी, कम से कम यूरोप के किसी देश में तो ये मांग कभी नहीं उठने वाली कि भारतीयता की शिक्षा दी जाए। भारतीयता की शिक्षा से अगर हम लोगों को परहेज है, तो फिर हमें अपने लोकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट के साथ, अपनी लोकल हिस्ट्री के साथ, अपनी लोकल लैंग्वेजेस के साथ भी परहेज होना चाहिए। लेकिन हमारी जो रहन सहन है वो इतना डाइवर्स है, वो हमारी स्ट्रेंथ है, उसको वीकनेस नहीं बनने दें। हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की स्पिरिट है कि डाइवर्सिटी को सेलिब्रेट किया जाए। तो वो कल एक लेक्चर दे रही थी मेरी फ्रेंड उषा शर्मा कि आदिवासी बच्चों को ये डिजिटल एजुकेशन वर्ल्ड में आदिवासी बच्चे कहाँ खो गए, इस पे उनका चर्चा था। तो अगर इसमें कोई मॉडल हम ऐसा बना सकते हैं जिसमें इंटरनेट से पहले वहाँ उन बच्चों की कंसर्न को एड्रेस किया जा सके लोकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, तो वो प्रेफरेबल है या इंटरनेट की वेट करना और गजट्स का पहुंचना। और ज्योति क्योंकि मेरी बहुत अच्छी फ्रेंड है, मैं बार बार इनको कोट कर रहा हूँ, इंक्लूजन की हैं, क्या ये सो कॉल्ड मेन स्ट्रीम अपने आप में कोई स्ट्रीम है? मेजॉरिटी जो करती है वो सही है, ये कहाँ से आया? ये तो इंक्लूजन के कॉन्सेप्ट के अगेंस्ट है, बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट्स के अगेंस्ट है। तो जो लोकल इंडिजिनस मॉडल हैं, उनको सेलिब्रेट करने की, उनको एकोमोडेट करने की, उन भाषाओं को, उन संस्कृति को, उस ज्ञान को शिक्षा में जगह देने की बात अगर भारत की शिक्षा नीति नहीं करेगी तो शायद ये कहीं और संभव नहीं है मेरी समझ में। इसलिए मैंने कहा कि सेलिब्रेट करने की बात है।
Very well said. Yeah, very well said, Professor Arora. Yeah. Sushant, do we have some more questions? One,
Yes,
I
ma'am,
think
we
maximum
have-
we can take one more.
Okay. So I'll ask a small question by Sivakshi. Does the vision of NEP 2020 reflect the global mindset?
मैंने इंट्रोडक्टरी स्टेज पे कहा था कि ये फोर्थ रेवोल्यूशन जनरेशन की नीड्स को 20 साल आगे रखने वाली पॉलिसी है। ये रोबोटिक साइंस और आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस की दुनिया में भारतीय युवा पीढ़ी को साथ लेकर चलने के लिए इसका विजन ही ये है। अगर हम आज के मैंने एक और वर्ड यूज किया था कि ये सिर्फ इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन नहीं है, बल्कि ये जनरेशन का रेवोल्यूशन है।
Yes.
आपकी जनरेशन और मेरी जनरेशन में बहुत फर्क आ चुका है। आपकी जनरेशन में और आपसे 5 साल छोटे या 5 साल बड़े लोगों में भी एक फर्क है, उनकी सोच में, उनके लाइफस्टाइल में, उनकी प्रेफरेंसेस में, उनकी चॉइसेस में, उनके फ्रेंड्स में, उनके खाने पीने के कल्चर में, सब में। ये जो चेंज है ये बहुत बहुत फास्ट हो चुका है। पिछले कुछ टाइम में हमने जनरेशन गैप को 5 साल पे माना है साइकोलॉजिस्ट में। साइकोलॉजिस्ट कहते हैं कि ये जनरेशन गैप वो जनरेशन गैप नहीं है जो 1970 में 80 में था कि बाप बेटे का फर्क है। ये बाप बेटे का नहीं है, ये 5 साल छोटे या 5 साल बड़े में भी फर्क जो है वो आपको बड़ा क्लियर दिखेगा। आप लोग भी आई एम श्योर यू पीपल आर गोइंग टू स्कूल्स फॉर सम इंटर्नशिप, बिकॉज इन वन ऑफ द ईयर आई went to GD Soni DAV school, and there I saw people from CIC also coming for mathematics teaching and experimentation. So when you people go to school, many of you get a cultural shock. What is this generation now? हम ऐसे नहीं थे. They do not have respect for teachers. They do not have respect for their peers. They do not value their own property, school property. We were them. कैसे बात करते हैं, तो वो कल्चरल शॉक जो आपको एक स्कूल जाके मिला उन बच्चों से जो आपसे शायद 5-6 साल से ज्यादा छोटे नहीं हैं। आपने जस्ट BA करके MA एजुकेशन में आए और 5 साल पहले आप भी स्कूल में थे। तो वो जो चेंज आप देखते हैं, अगर हम किसी भी पॉलिसी का एक फंडामेंटल ऑब्जेक्टिव है अपग्रेडेशन। अगर हम अपने सिस्टम को अपग्रेड करना चाहते हैं और मैक्सिमम सोशल, कल्चरल, इकोनॉमिक चेंजेस को एकोमोडेट करना, उन चैलेंजेस को मिलना चाहते हैं, तो पॉलिसी की स्पिरिट ही वो होती है। श्योरली दिस पॉलिसी हैज अ विजन फॉर फोर्थ जनरेशन रेवोल्यूशन। इसीलिए ये डिजिटल एजुकेशन की भी बात करती है, ये वोकेशनल एजुकेशन के थ्रू सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट की भी बात करती है। ये वो जो सवाल था कि 10वीं के बाद बच्चा पूछता है व्हाट नेक्स्ट, 12वीं के बाद भी पूछता है व्हाट नेक्स्ट, ग्रेजुएशन के बाद भी पूछता है व्हाट नेक्स्ट, कि उसको आंसर क्यों नहीं मिलता। तो शायद कहीं ना कहीं वोकेशनल एजुकेशन, स्किल एजुकेशन उसमें हेल्प करेगी कि आफ्टर दिस यू कैन गो फॉर दिस स्पेशलाइजेशन और यू कैन ऑप्ट आउट ऑफ स्कूल एंड गो फॉर एम्प्लॉयमेंट। ये आपको डिसाइड करना है। तो साइंस, टेक्नोलॉजी और इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी में पॉलिसी का जो लास्ट के 3 चैप्टर्स हैं, आई एम श्योर ज्योति जी ने कोई एक्सपर्ट बुलाए होंगे जो टेक्नोलॉजी से होंगे, एजुकेशनल टेक्नोलॉजी से। तो पॉलिसी के आखिरी के 3 चैप्टर और टेक्नोलॉजी एंड यूज ऑफ इंटीग्रेटेड टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करते हैं, ऑनलाइन एंड डिजिटल एजुकेशन की बात करते हैं, और उसी के साथ साथ प्रोफेशनल एजुकेशन इन 21st सेंचुरी की बात करते हैं। तो ये 3-4 चैप्टर्स जब आप किसी एक्सपर्ट के साथ डिस्कस करेंगे आने वाले 8 वेबिनार्स में, तो आई एम श्योर आपको ये समझ बनाने में हेल्प मिलेगी कि आज का डिस्कशन तो एक ओरिएंटेशन था। आई कैन नॉट आंसर योर ऑल क्वेश्चंस एंड आई कैन नॉट प्रेजेंट होल पॉलिसी इन अ डिटेल्ड मैनर। देयर वाज अ टाइम स्ट्रेन आल्सो एंड देयर वाज अदर कंस्ट्रेंट्स आल्सो। बट ये चैप्टर जो मैंने मेंशन किए, आप जिनका सवाल था, चैप्टर पार्ट 3 ऑफ द पॉलिसी, चैप्टर 21, 22, 23, 24 अगर देखेंगे तो आपको ये विजन फॉर 2040 इसमें मिलेगा। पॉलिसी कहती है कि 2035 तक तो हम सारे यंग बच्चों को हायर एजुकेशन से जोड़ना चाहते हैं। 2030 तक हम 50% यूथ को हायर एजुकेशन से जोड़ना चाहते हैं। आज हमारा कितना परसेंट यूथ है हायर एजुकेशन में? आप में से कोई बताना चाहेगा? अराउंड 20 to 22% यूथ यूनिवर्सिटी एजुकेशन से जुड़ता है। पॉलिसी कहती है 2030 तक 50% GER रेट, ग्रॉस एनरोलमेंट रेशियो जो है 50%, और 2035 तक 100% बनाना चाहते हैं। तो ये विजन फ्यूचरिस्टिक है, और किसी भी पॉलिसी की बेसिक नीड होता है विजन, और उस नीड को सोशल चेंजेस, इंडस्ट्रियल चेंजेस, इकोनॉमिक चेंजेस और साइंटिफिक चेंजेस गवर्न करते हैं। और इस पॉलिसी को मैंने इसीलिए शुरू में इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन के साथ जोड़कर आपके साथ बात किया था कि जैसे जैसे इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन आता है वैसे वैसे फर्स्ट इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन के साथ, सेकंड के साथ, थर्ड के साथ और फोर्थ के साथ हमने मेजर चेंजेस इन इंडियन एजुकेशन सिस्टम समझने की कोशिश की है, लाने की कोशिश की। वो कितना कामयाब होते हैं ये डिबेट का मामला हो सकता है। आई होप सुशांत आपका ये सवाल आंसर मिला होगा।
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Probably a very, very detailed and critical overview of the policy, because some of the responses were so extensive, deep rooted, that it shake you up to a level that you start realizing what we have missed in the previous years and what we need to do now. If we look at the global scenario, see, I can take one very simple example. One of our colleague from one of the colleges of Delhi University, she's moved to London. So she's a resident there. She was a music teacher and a sitar trainee. So she was teaching music and sitar to undergrad students in the college. So, but the presence of those teachers there in the college was only limited either to their confined to their music room, or otherwise on the college stage, it was limited to the Independence Day celebration and 26th January celebration. And whenever there is a college day, so 5 to 10 minutes presentation by them. But now she is in London. The classical instrument played by that scholar, that teacher, that musician is so much valued there that she is now a celebrity. We don't cherish what we have. We don't celebrate what we have. And Professor Arora is very right, because all the philosophers or psychologists we talk about, we do have Indian versions of all these theories. But when we try to validate, we look at the West. So this policy try to bridge the gap between the Indian and the global. Yes, we should have a global mindset, but our foundation should be very much rooted in our own cultural heritage. So this is how we are going to pass through and take through this policy to the next generation. Thank you very much for your valuable time and setting the tone of the discussion, because for next 1 week we'll be thinking over these ideas, these pointers, this critical, difficult questions you have raised, and I'm sure that all of us are going to look some kind of solutions to it. And now for the next series, we'll be eagerly waiting for our next speaker to talk about. Professor Pankaj, are you there? Do you want to add something? Professor Pankaj Tyagi?
Yeah, I'm very much there. I was enjoying the hearing on this, and in fact, it has enlightened me a lot about the national education policy.
Pankaj, could you be louder?
Yeah, I have not gone through it in so much detail, but so the lecture was very enlightening for me as well. And it was nice to see so many students were there also hearing this. And there were many students, those who were from BTech also, I could see. So I hope Professor Arora, all the students from different streams of CIC would have enjoyed your session. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much. I thank you once again from all the
Jyoti,
students. Yeah, please,
एक छोटा
please.
सा request. One is a thank for having this manageable size of around 35 to 40. That's always good size to discuss. Secondly, you have dedicated reporters for the session, Pallavi and Ranveer.
Yeah.
I would really appreciate after this series of webinars or along with each webinar, you can share series because I am working on a book for policy. If inputs from young people can also be there, that would surely be acknowledged as contribution from CIC, Mathematics, Science, Education Group. Those would be acknowledged there. But of course, these young people's questions and doubts and their own perspective, if they document in some way, would get space in and will help me to be more critical about policy. So
Oh.
Pallavi and Ranveer, if Dr. Jyoti allow
No,
you,
we'll surely do it. We'll surely do it. So
Yes, sir.
it is basically we are part of the same community, and it's a very good suggestion that ideas and perspectives of young people reflect in the book and documented properly for the larger audience. So we'll be definitely sharing the summary and the questions from the each session to you.
thank you.
Thank you, and all the students are saying thank you. They are saying that it was a very exciting and thought-provoking session. So thank you once again. So we'll take a leave for today. Okay. Enjoy learning. Enjoy thinking.